Good morning, students. In the last lecture, we discussed about biomagnification and carbon cycle. So, I would like to discuss in today's lecture about nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, water and phosphorus cycle. So, we'll start with nitrogen cycle, and I will start with a brief information on nitrogen. All of us know that nitrogen exists in atmosphere as N2 gas, and it has highest concentration, that is near about 79% of the total air mass. Nitrogen is an essential element in the living organisms because it is taken by the plants and converted into amino acids, and when long chain amino acids are combined, they form one molecule of protein, and protein is very essential for the growth of plants and other living organisms. So it is an essential element for living organisms. It is used for the formation of protein and also DNA, a genetic material in the living organisms. Nitrogen is a limiting nutrient in the nature. This means that it is shortest in supply, and when excess of nitrogen is applied to the plants, then it increases the growth of plants. So it's a limiting nutrient, and because of the man-made activities, we have also changed the natural nitrogen cycle to some extent. So in today's lecture, we'll see that how nitrogen flows in the environment and how human induced activities have changed the natural nitrogen cycle. So I will start with the nitrogen in atmosphere in the form of N2 gas, and this nitrogen gas is taken by the green plants, especially the leguminous plants, special variety of plants, and those leguminous plants are capable of absorbing atmospheric nitrogen with the help of a bacteria that is called rhizobium bacteria. This rhizobium bacteria grows at the roots of these leguminous plants, and this bacteria can directly absorb atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into ammonium nitrogen. Now the ammonium nitrogen is further converted into nitrate nitrogen, and when bacteria will convert atmospheric nitrogen to nitrate nitrogen, it will be absorbed by the plants through its roots. So plant get atmospheric nitrogen in a usable form, which it finally convert into amino acids, and when long chain amino acids is formed, that is called protein, and protein is used for the metabolic activities of the plant. So the rhizobium bacteria will help plant in absorbing nitrogen from the atmosphere, and in return this plant will provide food to this rhizobium bacteria. So both bacteria and plant live in a symbiotic relationship, means both are helping each other by their unique characteristics. So atmospheric nitrogen will reach to the biosphere in the form of amino acids and protein. Another way of reaching this atmospheric nitrogen to lithosphere and biosphere is by lightning and thundering process. Whenever lightning and thundering will occur in the sky, then at that time, because of higher temperature and pressure, the nitrogen gas molecule will get broken into nitrogen free radical, and when those nitrogen free radicals will combine with oxygen that is also present in the atmosphere, it will form nitrogen dioxide gas, and when then nitrogen dioxide will combine with water vapors, it will form acids. Then those weak acids will come to the lithosphere with the help of precipitation or rainfall, and it can be then absorbed by the plants, green plants. So there are two ways. One is nitrogen fixation, another is lightning and thundering, by which this atmospheric nitrogen can reach to biosphere. Now from plants, this organic nitrogen, or say amino acids, will get transferred with the help of food chains to the different animals, and it will keep on flowing in the ecosystem in the form of organic nitrogen. Whenever there will be death of these plants and animals as a natural process, then because of death and decay, the nitrogen that was stored in those plants and animals will now get stored as a nitrogen in decayed material. So we know that decomposers attack these decayed material. So these microorganisms or decomposers will extract that organic nitrogen from the decayed material. And in this process, that amino acid or protein will get converted into ammonium nitrogen by these decomposers. Now this ammonium nitrogen can further be changed into a different form of nitrogen by a special group of bacteria which are known as Nitrosomonas bacteria. These bacteria, with the help of nitrification process, will absorb ammonium nitrogen and convert it into nitrite form of nitrogen, that is NO2N. Now NO2N can be uptaken by another group of bacteria which are known as Nitrobacter, and these group of bacteria, with the help of a process which is called nitrification, can convert this nitrite form of nitrogen to nitrate form of nitrogen, that is NO3N. So from decayed material, first of all, bacteria converted the organic nitrogen into ammonium nitrogen. Then Nitrosomonas bacteria converted ammonium nitrogen to nitrite nitrogen. Then Nitrobacter bacteria converted nitrite nitrogen to nitrate nitrogen. Now this nitrate form of nitrogen has two routes. The first route is that it can be uptaken by the plants through its root and again converted into amino acids. So we have seen that this nitrogen nutrient started moving from the plants, and through animals and bacteria it again reached to the plants in a cyclic manner. And in our previous lecture also we had discussed that nutrients will always move in a cyclic manner. So that was one route of this nitrate nitrogen to be uptaken by the green plants and converted into amino acids. Another way could be another group of bacteria which are known as denitrifers can absorb this nitrate form of nitrogen and reduce it to nitrogen gas, which will escape into the atmosphere. So again the cyclic movement can be seen. Nitrogen is started from the atmosphere and finally reached to atmosphere. This part of flow of nitrogen is the cyclic movement of nitrogen. Now we have made some alterations in the natural nitrogen cycle. How? We'll see. We synthesize or manufacture chemical fertilizers in the fertilizer industries. Especially we are synthesizing urea by the Haber process in the chemical factories. So whenever such nitrogenous fertilizers are manufactured in the industries, if these fertilizers find a way to escape to the nearby surrounding, if they get mixed with the flowing water through drain process, then they may come out of that industrial premises and find its way to nearby water body. It could be a pond, lake, river, etc. So whenever these nitrogenous fertilizers move out of the industrial premises, there are two way of moving. First is that these fertilizers can mix up with the flowing water, and with by flowing at the surface they may get mixed to any pond water, nearby pond water. Another way is that they may first leach down or vertically move down in the soil, and they may find a way underneath the soil to that particular pond. So by leaching process and surface runoff process, these chemical fertilizers can reach to nearby surface water body, which could be a pond, lake, river, or even ocean. Now whenever these nutrients will mix up with the pond water, the extra nutrient supply to the pond will alter the biotic component of that pond ecosystem, because pond is an ecosystem. It has biotic and abiotic components. So biotic components includes plants and fishes and other animals. So whenever extra nitrogen will be supplied to that pond, the vegetation or the producer population will increase in that particular pond, and it will finally alter all the food chains. This process of enrichment of the pond water with the nutrients like nitrogen is called as eutrophication. Now there is one more way of ammonium nitrogen that was generated by decomposition of decayed material by bacteria, that this ammonium nitrogen may also find its way and mix up with the pond water uh, below the ground. So eutrophication is a process in which excess of nitrogen, especially inorganic nitrogen, comes from the outside area and gets mixed up with the pond water, and in this way it alters or modifies the structure of that particular pond ecosystem. So because of man-made activities, we have altered the composition of nitrogen in the pond ecosystem. The how other human activities have affected nitrogen cycle, we'll see. We have industries and vehicles where we use fuel, and whenever that fuel is used or burnt, a lot of gases in the form of nitrogen oxides are released, which cause air pollution, and all these nitrogenous gases will finally reach to atmosphere. So because of industrial and vehicular emission, we are adding up these nitrogenous oxides to the atmosphere. So this is how the entire in the entire environment nitrogen will move. Sometimes this nitrogen will be in the abiotic components, like what we saw, that nitrogen was in the water, pond water. Sometimes this nitrogen will be in biotic component, for example in plants and animals. So that was the complete nitrogen cycle which we discussed now. Now we'll discuss about oxygen cycle. We know that oxygen is the second highest gas in terms of its volume and mass in the atmosphere, and it contains about 21% of the total air mass. This oxygen is present as O2 in the atmosphere, and from atmosphere it reaches to biosphere by the process of respiration. All the living organisms, they inhale air, and by this process they capture oxygen from the air for their metabolic activities. So by the process of respiration, this oxygen from atmosphere will reach to the biosphere, and by the process of photosynthesis it will return back to atmosphere, and only the producers are capable of uh, doing this photosynthesis process. They absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and with the help of sunlight, water, carbon dioxide and chlorophyll, they will synthesize their organic food, and in this process oxygen is released as a byproduct which goes back to the atmosphere. So it will come to biosphere by respiration and go back by photosynthesis. Now this oxygen will be stored in the plant's body, which will be moving to the food chain, moving to the ecosystem with the help of food chains. So from producers it will move to herbivores, from herbivores to carnivores. So it will keep on moving in entire ecosystem. These animals will also absorb this oxygen from atmosphere by the process of respiration. So this is how it will move in the biosphere. There is one more way through which this oxygen from atmosphere will come to biosphere, that is all the decomposers or bacteria or microorganisms, whenever they attack on any decayed material, then for degrading it they require oxygen. So by the process of degradation of death and decayed material, the microorganisms will consume oxygen from atmosphere. So that was the flow of oxygen from atmosphere to biosphere and from biosphere to atmosphere. Now, whenever some of these plants and animals will die, the oxygen present in their body in the form of decayed material, if gets buried deep inside the soil, then it reaches to lithosphere, and this process is known as burial. So from biosphere to lithosphere it will reach by the process of burial. Now there is one more process that is known as weathering, and through this process also there is exchange of oxygen from atmosphere to lithosphere and from lithosphere to atmosphere. Now what does weathering means? Weathering means the breaking down of parental rocks, large rocks, into the smaller rocks because of some external factors. For example, if there is a big rock and water flows over it with a very high speed, then there are chances that water may erode the rock particles from its surface. It may be broken down with the help of the flow of water, because it can drift the rock from its actual position and break it down. Sometimes air can also erode the sand particles or rock particles from the surface because of its strong force. And because of temperature variation also, many times rocks break down because of temperature shocks. So whenever weathering will occur, then the oxygen that is present in the rock in the form of its composition, oxides of many metals, this oxygen may return back to the atmosphere, or we can say that it can be released back to atmosphere. And many times this oxygen can be absorbed by these rock particles or sand particles, and in this way the composition of rock will change. So by the process of weathering, oxygen can come to lithosphere, it can also return back to the atmosphere. So that was how the oxygen moves between atmosphere to the lithosphere. Now we have one more segment that is called as hydrosphere, which comprises of water in any form. Now in hydrosphere also, the surface water bodies are in direct contact with air, or say atmosphere. Then the free oxygen that is present in the atmosphere may get dissolved in the surface water by the process of water uptake. So in this way oxygen from the atmosphere will get dissolved to the water that is a component of hydrosphere. So this is how this oxygen will move in the environment. Among all the spheres, the maximum concentration of oxygen is found in lithosphere. Near about 99.5% of the entire oxygen that is available on this earth is in the lithosphere in the form of oxides of rocks, oxides of metals, or as rock composition of the rocks. So most of the oxygen is present in the lithosphere part of environment. Now we'll talk about water cycle, which is I think the most simplest form cycle among all. We know that water is present in the clouds in the form of water vapors. So whenever there will be the process of condensation, these water vapors will come down to the earth in the form of precipitation, either snow precipitation or rainfall. So by the process of precipitation, the condensed water will reach to earth, and this precipitated water may either flow over the surface of earth, or it may percolate down through the soil, open soil, and can be stored in the form of groundwater. So precipitated water can be seen either as a surface runoff water or as a groundwater. Now, the plants which are part of biosphere, with the help of their roots, will absorb water from either underground water or from also the surface water. So this water through lithosphere will reach to the plant, and plants by the process of transpiration will release this water back to atmosphere. The water is oozed out through the leaves in the form of water vapors, and that process is known as transpiration. So from biosphere it will return back to atmosphere. Also, the surface water by the process of evaporation from oceans, lakes, ponds, rivers and streams will also reach to atmosphere in the form of water vapors, and again that water vapors will get condensed, and it will return back to the earth by the process of precipitation. So this is how water moves in the environment, and during its movement this water will change its state. Sometimes it will be in liquid state, sometimes it will be in vapor state, and sometimes it will be in solid state in the form of ice and snow. So that was all about water cycle. Now we'll talk about phosphorus cycle. We know that phosphorus cycle is a sedimentary cycle, and most of the time this phosphorus remains in the form of sediments in the lithosphere. It is a slow cycle. We had discussed this in the previous lecture. Before starting the phosphorus cycle, I would like to tell about the two forms of phosphorus, that is organic phosphorus and inorganic phosphorus. Whenever phosphorus is present in the living organism's body, it will be termed organic phosphorus. The examples of organic phosphorus are phytin, phospholipids, and nucleic acids. These are present in plants and animals. Whenever phosphorus will be out of the biosphere or in the abiotic component, most of the time it will be in the form of inorganic phosphorus, for example orthophosphates. So these are two forms of phosphorus which we'll see while there will be a movement of phosphorus in the environment. So we'll start with the weathering process. We know that this phosphorus is present in the rocks in the form of inorganic phosphorus, or say orthophosphates. So whenever there will be weathering of rocks or breaking down of rock because of external factors like water, wind, temperature, even the biological agents, the phosphorus will be released from the rocks in the form of inorganic phosphorus, and it will get dissolved to the nearby water body. The form will be again inorganic. What changed? Phosphorus moved from the lithosphere to the hydrosphere, but it is still in the form of inorganic phosphorus. Now this inorganic phosphorus or orthophosphate can reach to the oceans through the rivers, and finally from oceans it may sink deep down in the ocean bottom in the form of inorganic phosphorus in the form of sediments. These inorganic phosphorus sediments may be uplifted over a geological time because of many natural processes like earthquake, etc., and may again come in the form of large landmass over the earth surface, for example mountains. Now that was how this inorganic phosphorus moved from lithosphere to hydrosphere, and from hydrosphere one component, that was river, to the oceans another component. Now we know that phosphorus in the plant or the living organism is present in the form of organic phosphorus. So whenever there will be death of plants, and there will be decay of the dead part of any plant or animal, this organic phosphorus from the plants will move to the soil in the form of organic phosphorus, and this will be done by the bacteria which will act on the decayed material. They will release or degrade that organic phosphorus from the decayed material and release it to the soil, on which these bacteria would be degrading the decayed material. Now this organic phosphorus in the soil may be available as inorganic phosphorus in the soil. So by certain bacteria, now this organic phosphorus will be converted into inorganic phosphorus. And what is the inorganic form of phosphorus? That is orthophosphate. Now this inorganic phosphorus may again mix up with the flowing water and reach to the oceans. Or this inorganic phosphorus can also be absorbed by the green plants. Now green plants will absorb the inorganic phosphorus and convert it into organic phosphorus. So what we discussed in this particular portion, that phosphorus in the plants was present in the form of organic phosphorus. Whenever the death and decay of these plants and animals happened, because of the decay process, the organic form of phosphorus from the decayed material was taken by bacteria and released to the soil in the form of organic phosphorus. Now, another species of bacteria will convert this organic form of phosphorus in the soil to inorganic form of phosphorus in the soil. Now, this inorganic form of phosphorus can be absorbed by the plants, or it may move to the oceans with the help of flowing water, and it may finally get sinked at the bottom of ocean in the form of sediments or rock sediments. So this is how phosphorus moves in the environment. This process is quite slow because once the phosphorus is deposited at the bottom of ocean, it will take a long time for this phosphorus to come out by the process of uplift. So this is how phosphorus moves in the environment. So that was all about today's lecture. I think I was able to explain it clearly, but if you have any doubts, please share it with me in the live lectures. And I would also like to request all the students to prepare the past lectures notes, because in coming lectures I will take some MCQ test through Google Forms, and the questions will be based on the lectures we had discussed or the topics we had discussed in the previous lectures, including this one. Thank you.